Happy New Year, everyone. If you're watching this around the time that it's posting, Happy New Year. So let's go ahead and let's get started. I have some things that I received earlier. I'm going to tune in now because it was a little while since I received this, so I just need to be in that energy again. We're going to see what comes through in the crystal ball, what comes out in the cards, and any additional information that wants to come out. So, okay. Taking a step aside. And allowing Spirit to pass through me. Opening up to receive information. Okay. So when I first stepped into the space to receive some of this message, I was seeing, it was almost like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like this little creature that was just like this little, it looked like the top of a bowling pin that's cut off with eyes. And it was just sitting around by itself. And I saw a bunch of other ones like out in this like bustling little, I don't know, little crowd of them. And this one was by itself. And it seemed to be there because of its own design, right? It was planning on being by itself. I saw like this flower opening and closing and opening and closing. And every time it would reopen, it would open a little bit further and it would open up a little bit more beautiful. And so what this was saying to me is that someone here has been in isolation. Part of it was chosen, part of it was not, right? So for many of you who this message is going to be for, and I'll get to some symbols here shortly, it seems a little bit like we've let go of a lot of connections. We've released many people inside of our life. Sometimes people have released us, and that's why we're in isolation as well. This isolation phase feels like it's been going on for quite some time, at least 2 years. So if you haven't been in isolation for 2 years, I don't know how much this will resonate for you. And it doesn't even have to be that you've been in complete isolation, but for the most part you've been alone. For the most part you've been alone. However, if you've considered yourself isolated, right? I'll just put it that way. And as I'm saying this, what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing this, it's a lily that's opening. And so lily for me, it can represent a lot of things. In context to this, it feels very much like some aspect of our masculine and feminine energies has been healing at this time, right? And the lily signifies time for me. And whenever we have this sort of lily imagery, it feels very masculine as an energy. And so it's this masculine emergence of time. What I mean by that is that it's time to reemerge for somebody. And I notice I'm doing all this stuff with my hands as I'm talking about this. So for me, that's a symbol that there's certain signs that you've seen about this, that this is a new phase that you're about to enter, or you've been having that sort of signal take place inside of yourself in regards to reemerging. And so that's who this message seems to be about. Now, there are some symbols. I'm going to get into these symbols in case they resonate for you. If they don't resonate for you, it doesn't mean that it's not your message. It only means that the people who these symbols resonate for, who identify with who this group of people is, as described up until now, should probably pay more attention. So one of the things I'm seeing is I'm seeing a glass bottle. The bottle is very large and it's like this bluish teal sort of color. As I said that, I stepped into like a bluish teal sort of color, but then as I said that, I saw specifically like this cobalt blue. So I don't know if it's both of those are significant or if it's just a cobalt blue. Okay, I'm hearing that just a cobalt blue. They just had to bring me into that energy to get me there. So a cobalt blue. And then I'm seeing a candle, and this candle has an image of Lord Shiva on it. I'm seeing, what is this? It's a type of, I am getting the word flash through my mind, aquamarine. Let's see. You guys know I suck at the aquamarines and all those. It's an aquamarine. Okay. And then there's a little bottle. It's like an amber bottle. I think this is one of those like oil mixing bottles. There's one just sitting by itself someplace. There's something very specific. Oh, it's empty. It's empty. It's one that somebody intended to use, but they actually haven't used it yet. Okay. And then I'm seeing this fan. It's like a handheld fan with flowers on it. and a roll of it. I think it's hemp. Okay, okay. Let's go ahead and let's pull some cards. Ooh. Okay, we'll take them. That was messy, but we'll take them. Right now, it seems like one of the things that may have happened is that there was a lot of healing that took place in this energy. So this is why, right? We have the fallen angel. This is spiritual narcolepsy. I don't actually feel that this is what's important. I feel that the imagery is kind of important. This is an individual who, you know, whoever I'm reading for, it feels a little bit like we had to have time to grow our, I'm just going to say it this way, grow our wings, right? We had to have time to gain a little bit more emotional strength, quite possibly spiritual strength. We really had to dig through something for ourselves. And so whenever I see this card, this really represents this sort of fall from grace. For me, that means socially, right? In context to this reading, we've allowed ourselves to possibly in the past get involved in some situations that weren't right for us, or get involved in connections that weren't reciprocal, for example. Some of you may have even been in a group or a social setting that you were happy with, but something happened to push you out. Right? Again, I think I mentioned that in the beginning. So I'm getting both energies here. I'm getting one where a person is learning better boundaries, another one who literally it feels like we lost everything. And so this time in isolation has maybe made us feel a little bit like this, where this is the drifter, right? Where we don't really have a social network. We don't really have an emotional network or a support system. Some of you may have a support system that's at a distance, right? But you yourself, you tend to stay inside, or you just tend to keep to yourself. There is this feeling of freedom and this feeling of liberation that comes when we're in this energy. However, I don't know that everyone is necessarily feeling that. I think that by the time this reading is meant for you, you will have established some sort of sense of freedom in this energy. A lot of times, whether we feel that it's free or we feel that it's lonely matters on our perception, right? It's all dependent on our perception. For someone who is still in the energy of loss, it might feel like loneliness, for example. And that's a really good indicator for some people who are moving through the energy of loss and trying to figure out how to heal that, which is sometimes why we're in this energy, whether it's through grief or whether it's, you know, the lack mentality, right? If you're struggling with lack mentality and you've been trying to heal that, or you're trying to heal other losses inside your life, a really good indicator as to how you're doing, and if you have healed that, is how you're interpreting this energy. Is it being interpreted through a lens of I'm alone, therefore I'm lonely? Or is it interpreted through a lens of I'm alone, so I'm free? I'm able to move in other directions. I don't necessarily have to worry about how those directions affect other people. I have a platform to basically create something for myself and to fill it with very beautiful things. So that can be a really big sign for us in terms of whether we've actually healed a lack wound or not. So somebody here, I feel like you have, right? So I feel that that's who this message is for. It's for somebody who's either moving into the energy of healing it, and they're starting to notice that mentality change, or they're starting to really, they have already embraced that freedom quite a bit. So this energy is telling me that here, there's something coming up here from the time that you watch this, that it feels a little bit like we're emerging from that state. We've learned the lessons that we've needed to learn here, mostly about that perception shift and about how to heal something within ourselves that has projected this energy into our world. Hence certain abandonment issues that I'm feeling inside of this energy, as though this were in the past, right? We've had an abandonment wound. We maybe have had attachment style wounds, for example. There's something new on the horizon here in terms of stepping into the social and the connectivity of our fellow humans, but coming back a different way than how we showed up. We're in a different energy. And when we show up into that in a different energy, now our interactions are going to be quite different. So this seems to be the major theme in somebody's life. So let's see. I'm hearing to take the bottom. Okay. Yeah, you are definitely moving out of stagnation. And okay, so we have I'm being told to flip them for you. So we have this energy, which is Dust Devil, and we have this, the Fates. I'm not necessarily reading these here. I'm reading the images that are coming out in these cards. So with this card, if you notice, there's this heart space, this glowing gold. Someone here has worked a lot on their heart space in this time of isolation, right? This isolation, when we isolate, whether it's forced or whether we choose to do it, oftentimes that can be the time that we grow the most, right? Isolation is required to grow the most, essentially. This is why, all throughout history, people have practiced asceticism in order to really figure themselves out, in order to really get in there, because we can't have the distractions. We can't have other people pulling on our energy. Here, somebody has been in this place and they've actually, they came into it from a place of stagnation. Their life was possibly stagnant. Whoever I'm reading for, it feels a little bit like, things were just maybe a mess, maybe just kind of a mess, or we were really unhappy with things. We didn't have a future that we could see for ourselves. And so moving into this isolation period is where we kind of, it reminds me of that alchemical process of dissolution, right? We take apart the pieces and we break it down to its most basic forms. And we look at what's there. We look at what's left. Some of you have done a lot of heart healing. As I said, this can be about boundaries. This can be about forgiving of one or both parents. This can be about forgiving certain things that have happened in our lives, or at least healing ourselves from it. And as we step into this energy, one of the things that often happens is we also have to contend with this energy of feeling very emotionally void. Right? So someone has worked through all these energies. This is all required in order to transmute ourselves. So someone's been through a very huge process of transmutation. This is probably evidenced already by certain things inside of your life for whoever I'm reading for. Now here we have this card, and this is the moon, right? This moon is surrounded by these puffy clouds, but as I'm looking at it in the screen, this almost looks like a bear that has wings. And so this is where we learn how to protect our emotions, but not in a negative way, in a very appropriate way, right? The bear is a very protective spirit for me. It's also, it represents very powerful magic to me. So somebody here has also learned how their emotional states can reflect certain things externally to them. With the wings, what that's saying to me is that there's this added sort of higher level protection, right? So we've not only learned how to protect ourselves and I think that whoever this message is for, you're going to understand what I'm saying by this. I know that people who haven't crossed this bridge and aren't here aren't going to understand this. Some of you have learned how to protect from a very dark space. Some of you have learned how to protect from a very high space. This is where we learn the value of protecting from both, right? Not defensiveness. There's a difference. It's not about defensiveness. This is about protecting ourselves and being able to keep ourselves safe in a certain way. When we are alchemizing those two forces within us, there's something new that emerges. And this is where we're able to allow life to teach us. We're allowing the great teacher to enter into our life, right? Someone has entered this energy where now their experiences are their teachers, and they view it that way. They view the positive and the negative as things that are both designed to help their evolution. And so this is the space that someone is in. This is how you're going to know that this message is definitely for you. You're about to reemerge, because this is the transformation. Prior to this whole phase, something that happens is this isn't integrated yet. And so we may protect, we may defend, we may demand things. We may expect people to change for us. That's how we tend to behave before we enter this isolation period and we do this work internally, right? And it all comes from a place of this lower protection, right? Protecting out of a wound. And one thing that has happened is somebody has healed all of that. And so now we've allowed this higher aspect to kind of merge with that in order for it to not be a defensiveness, in order for it to not be a negative way that we're protecting ourselves, but a very discerning way, right? Where we're able to be vulnerable and yet still know that in that vulnerability, we're still safe, because it's like the parent is still around, right? We've become that parent. We've learned to mother ourselves. We've learned to father ourselves. So this is very powerful. Somebody here has gone through a very powerful transformational process. And again, like I said, this must be why it felt like it hasn't been just like a year, right? This is somebody at least 2 years, at least. And this is, You've probably been sitting around wondering, when am I going to get out there? When is this going to happen? And you just know that it's not the right time, right? Some of you, know that it's not the process of you going out there. You know that you're going to attract, right? I want to say for some people, they don't know how to tell which they are. I can't necessarily tell you which you are, but it would be very good to, interpreting those types of things for ourselves and the way that we're feeling about them can sometimes be very different from person to person. And so take a step back and ask yourself, are you waiting around? Do you feel like you're waiting around, or do you just know that it's going to come in? Because there is a little bit of a difference, right? When you just know that something's coming in, you're not waiting. So that's the only way that I know to be able to tell and discern which one you are. For myself, I always find that I'm a little bit of both, right? It's that I know that it'll come in, but I feel that I should go out and put the energy out there that it's allowed to come in now. Does that make sense? And so some of you, you may find that beneficial too. Okay, so the last card here is Treasures Hidden in the Shadows. This is kind of what you've become, right? Because you've done all this work, you've become an absolute treasure, somebody who's extremely different from other people. Not that we have to be special or we have to be set apart, but because you have something to offer now that you didn't have to offer before. Not that you didn't have things to offer before, that's not what I'm saying. But now you have this very, I'm just going to use the word enlightened, a very enlightened viewpoint about life, a very solid energy to offer. You have wisdom to offer. In our friendships, in our relationships that we attract, we want to make sure that the ones that last are not relationships that we're constantly pouring into, right? Sometimes they pour into us as well. So I think that whoever I'm reading for, that. Just make sure that as you step out into this energy, because sometimes this is one that can escape us even after this transformational process, just be sure that you're not in an energy that is above anybody. Understand that if you're in an energy like that, and sometimes people put us in that energy, right? When they teach us, they treat us as teachers, right? Understand that when you're in that energy dynamic where someone is setting you up slightly above them, that's not a relationship that will last. The relationship that lasts, you'll be equal. You'll be partners. It'll be someone who looks up to you and you look up to them, right? So I don't know why I wanted to say that, but I felt like I needed to say that. Okay, let's go ahead. And we're going to pull one card from this. Okay, so longing for home, belonging, the original light workers. The original light workers, that's not really what's speaking to me, although that may be what speaks to you, right? So I just wanted to read the whole thing. But this is really about belonging. Where do we belong? When we start off before this phase of alchemy, one thing that we find is that we don't feel like we belong anywhere. We may have lots of friends, and yet there's a part of us that feels like something's missing in that dynamic. And the reason why is because we're in conflict with ourselves. That's what this whole healing process is. It's where we learn to love ourselves, right? Not to be at conflict with ourselves. And because of that, we're now able to understand what relationships and what people around us are right for us. And so as we clear those energies out from the conflict within ourselves, we start to find the places where we fit outside of ourselves as well. We learn to belong inside, and now we're capable of belonging inside of groups exterior to us. So this is a very powerful energy. Whoever this is, you seem to have a very interesting time that's coming ahead of you, where I think a lot of you are actually in the process of stepping out and trying to make those connections and trying to forge new things for yourself. But this period of isolation, it was for your growth, and it seems to be coming to a close. Yeah. And it feels very much like there are new experiences that are waiting, and it's time to get to them. So whoever this message is for, if this resonated for you, please hit that like button. Feel free to leave me a comment, and until next time.